Welcome to GoPowercat.com's Powercat Pregame Podcast, sponsored by Weddle & Sons Roofing. Now, here's Fitz.
Hey everyone, I am Fitz, and welcome to the Powercat Pregame Podcast, sponsored by Weddle & Sons Roofing. This is our final edition, naturally, of this show for the 2024 football season as Kansas State heads to the Rate Bowl in Phoenix to take on the Rutgers Scarlet Knights out of the Big Ten. And that's the game, of course, we're going to preview as the Cats and Knights play for the second time only. The first time was under Ron Prince at the Texas Bowl. It was a muddy mess. I've done a daily delivery on what a fiasco that was for Kansas State, but they could not stop Ray Rice in that Rutgers offense under Coach Greg Schiano. Well, Coach Schiano's back in Piscataway for a second go-around, and he's already having an impact on this program as they went to a bowl last year and won. And this year, Rutgers brings a 7-5 record into this bowl game. And it's a little bit of a disappointment for them because this was the first time now that the Big Ten has dissolved their divisions, and they didn't have to see Penn State and Michigan and Ohio State and all those great teams that were in that Eastern Division. In fact, they had none of them on the schedule. So it was a fairly easy run for the Scarlet Knights, but injuries ate them up. And we'll get to that a little bit later in the show, and you know how this works. We've got Brian Hanley to come in and talk about K-State, what this bowl game means, where the Wildcats are as they head into it. He's the host of the Big 12 Insiders, a former Kansas State offensive lineman, and of course, our football analyst, one of our two football analysts. And in the second half, we've given Ryan Wallace the show off because as our recruiting editor, his main job, he's a little bit swamped with the transfer portal. So we're going to bring in Bobby Deren from our Rutgers site on the 24/7 Sports Network to give you a inside look of the Scarlet Knights and where they're at under Coach Schiano heading into this game. Of course, then we'll hear from Chris Klieman, and Ryan Gilbert will sum things up with some of the betting information surrounding this game. So we've got a lot to get to. Let's get rolling. It's the Cats and Scarlet Knights. The game is on Thursday, the 26th. Kicking at 4:30 p.m. Central, 3:30 p.m. Out there in Phoenix. And we will be there. Mr. Gilbert and I will be there to cover this game. And also, as I said, is at Chase Field, which is the home of the Arizona Diamondbacks, which is kind of interesting. I'm looking forward to that, going back there, because it's actually a pretty good place to cover a game. So let's get rolling. Brian Hanley is standing by. And now let's bring him in to give us a breakdown of your Kansas State Wildcats. And now we do bring in Brien Hanley, our football analyst, host of the Big 12 Insiders, and a man of many skills. Big B, I asked Chris Klieman, and we'll get to the Chris Klieman interview later in this show, about how the rules of bowls changed with the transfer portal, all this schedule mess, and in terms of recruiting, overlapping bowl prep, and all that stuff. And now with the 12-team playoff, I think bowls are less important. I think we all saw that coming. But he said, yeah, the role of bowls has changed, particularly in the last years, but this year changes even more. What are your thoughts on what is important about this bowl for a program such as Kansas State?
For me, the one thing is that I'm just coming into this, Fitz, is that guys that are coming in at the semester can actually practice with their upcoming teams. Now, they can't dress and they can't play, but they can actually practice with their team. And I'm like, if that's the case, first of all, that's phenomenal that they're able to do that. That's something that you wouldn't think the NCAA would ever allow them to do. So for them to be able to do that, I think is great. But in all intensive purposes, this is an exhibition game. You're trying not to get anybody hurt. You want to send out any seniors that are playing in this game the right way and give them an opportunity, especially the guys that maybe don't have an opportunity to go play at the next level. Now, some people, everybody may think that they're going to try to do that anyway or have that opportunity, but you definitely want to send them on their way. But you're wanting to also keep your guys enthused. Hey, this is another opportunity to maybe right a ship. And Kansas State's season didn't end the way that they thought, fans thought, the country didn't think
Nope.
that it should end. So it's not going to take the stain off of that, but you can at least get into the offseason on the right note, just like they did last year. End of the season didn't end the way that they wanted. End up winning a bowl game, get into the offseason with a little bit of momentum. Now, you have to capitalize on that momentum, which K-State's done in recruiting. Let's see if they can continue to do it into the transfer portal. But I think that's what this is all about, playing a bunch of young guys that didn't get to play. It's important to win, but it's not the end-all, be-all anymore. It's just not. You just want to put on a good performance.
Yeah, it's there's so many different layers to it. Before it was about, let's go win a football game.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's a good team. We're a good team. Let's see who's a better team. And it was clearly the end of that season. This is our reward. This is the cap. And we're done. Let's finish on a strong note. Now there's this vague gray area.
Yeah.
Is the game that important?
Right.
Do you even have enough players to play the game? We saw Marshall have to back out because of the portal. And now I feel like because of so many players leaving the program between this end of the regular season and the bowl, this becomes more about the next season than the previous season. It's still the previous season for the seniors, the guys who know this is their last game or might be their last game. The rest of the players are like, let's get ready for next year.
Yeah.
Let's see what our running backs have. And that's K-State's case. They don't have DJ Giddens. And we're going to see Joe Jackson. And we're going to see Dylan Edwards. Neither one of them nearly as big and powerful as DJ, but that's been the norm for Kansas State football. So does the running game change with Jackson and Edwards back there?
I think it does. And what they try to do. Look, we were calling for it for, I don't know, 3/4 of the season. You got to run the ball a little bit more outside, little outside zone, toss plays, all that type of stuff. I'm not saying those guys can't run inside, because at times during this season, they've shown that they can. And clearly that was what the offensive line blocked the best. But their best attributes are in space. Get them in space. Make guys miss. You know, the old adage, just get the ball in their hand and let them do their thing. Well, okay, fine. Let's see some of that. You know, let's see some innovation. Now, what's going to drive me, Fitz, and probably going to drive a lot of K-State fans is if we see a whole bunch of stuff in this bowl game that we didn't see during the regular season, I might have to buy a new television, because I'm going to end up breaking the screen. Because you're not going to tell me that, well, wait a minute, where was all of this during the regular season? Now, granted, a bowl game is a good time to try a whole bunch of different stuff, but so is practice, Fitz. So is practice.
So is a regular season.
Yes. So I just, if we see stuff, I'm going to be frustrated, but at the same time, maybe that's okay. You know what? We don't have to be so conservative. We can have a ton more imagination than what we showed, this past season, which, again, we can be frustrated, but maybe it's a good thing going into next year so we can evolve this offense.
Yeah. And let's start there on the offense, because K-State fans would probably love to see some different stuff. But again, something else Chris Klieman said that we'll get to later in the show is as of the end of last week, we had a press conference on a Friday leading into the bowl game. Chris Klieman hadn't really even looked at Rutgers because he's been working the portal.
Sure.
The portal period, he said, literally, I have to choose between paying attention to my current team to get ready for this bowl game or pay attention to my roster for all of next season. I chose my roster for next season, and my coordinators are putting out the game plans for this game, which will probably, for the Connor Riley people that don't like what he's doing, doesn't sound good, but that's exactly why he couldn't make a change right now on coaching. You can't make that change. It adds another element to this chaotic period. But I guess from that, I'd expect a whole lot of exactly what we've seen all year long, whether that's good or bad. But I don't think also, and again, I plead ignorance about Rutgers, but I probably don't imagine they present any unique challenges that are going to be, like playing Army and the triple option or something.
Right.
I think that they kind of fit into what K-State's seen this season, maybe a little bit different with Big Ten flavor, but there's not a whole lot of prep that needs to be done in scheming. So Big B, should everyone be prepared for some play calls they don't like, some defensive play calls they don't like, and pretty much exactly what we've seen all year?
I would guess, yeah. But again, that would be doing a disservice, to be honest. But I think you're right, Fitz. I think we're going to see a lot of the same stuff that we saw previously, but it would just be doing everybody a disservice. Why not run a flea flicker? Why not run a double reverse pass? Why not dig into the playbook, something that you haven't run since the second day of two-a-days? Well, they don't do two-a-days anymore, but the second day of summer practice. Why not dig into some of that stuff? I mean, what's the reason not to do that in a bowl game? But again, you're probably right. It's probably going to be the same defense, probably going to be the same offense, same offensive schemes and stuff like that, which I get it. I understand why, because, even the coordinators, coordinators are recruiting too. Everybody's digging in on this. So you can put your game plan together. I get that, but you also got to dig in to try to help get, secure guys for the next year. I think Coach Klieman is 1,000,000% right in what he did. Getting your team secure for next year is 1,000 times more important than this football game. It just is, So he did the right thing in digging into the portal and digging into everything that he needs to dig into. But I want to see something fun. I just don't. I think I don't know that we're going to see that. So I hope people aren't too disappointed. But I will be disappointed. But just understand the reasoning behind it. That's all.
They've been so risk adverse with Avery Johnson all season, and I get it. They wanted to protect him, and in this game they don't have Taquan Roberson as backup because he has re-entered the portal to find a place where he can play his last season. He served a great role this year. Maybe they could have used him a hair more, but I don't know if that means they're going to open it up and take some chances with Avery, or they're going to get ultra cautious and say, we don't want him injured going into the offseason. I'm really curious, Big B, what they do with Avery Johnson. Do they run him a bunch? I doubt it, but I'd love to see it.
I don't think so. I think they're going to take the same approach that they did last year. Is they'll run him out, roll him out, let him throw the ball, run and just get out of bounds, just be ultra cautious. I think that's going to be the thing, because here's the big thing with Avery. The development from this year in this offseason to next year is going to be very pivotal for him in his overall success. Is that this is the year where you've got to get better. A lot of people always talk about between your freshman and sophomore year. Well, that's fine, but he didn't start his freshman year. He played a little bit, but it was just a little bit. And he never really got an opportunity to throw the football. Never really got that opportunity. Well, then he goes and he plays this year. Okay. I thought his stats were fine. They weren't great, but they just kind of what they were. A guy that struggled to see the whole field. Maybe his mechanics weren't great. You expect that out of a first-time starter as a true sophomore. Well, next year, the development in this offseason is going to be critical. And I think he takes leaps and bounds. You don't need him hurt. You don't need him rehabbing for 2 months or whatever on a shoulder or a knee or an arm, whatever it happens to be. You don't need him rehabbing where he can't go get the development that he needs. You need him to start developing. And so I think they're going to take the same approach and just be very cautious with him. Heck, I wouldn't be surprised to see another quarterback get out there and play a little bit too. Like I said, play a bunch of young guys, man. Why not? What are you going to lose?
Yeah.
Obviously you don't want to sacrifice the integrity of the game or anything like that. Like, you're not trying to win, but at the same time, it's a bowl game. And we know what bowl games mean these days. So I think we're going to see the same kind of cautious approach, Fitz.
Yeah, you're probably right, and it's probably the correct path because he does need a really big offseason to get prepared. You look at Avery's stats, and his stats hold up. If you're just a person surfing around and looking at comparing quarterback stats, he's going to stand up. But it was those ill-timed turnovers, those critical mistakes at the beginning or end of games that were costly, and I think a cause of caused by two things. One, being a young quarterback and making mistakes, which comes with the territory. And two, untimely play calls that shouldn't have put him in that position, or bad prep because they weren't ready to run that play, such as the option at Iowa State. So we'll see what they bring out here. But, my only thing about Rutgers is being Big Ten. Maybe they just turn this into a physical, ugly, grinded out game. And honestly, K-State without DJ Giddens probably doesn't want to play that game, do they? And they also don't want to come equipped with a real deep receiver group because they moved on from some guys and some guys have transferred. And suddenly, they've got three players that have played significant minutes along with Ty Bowman and Sterling Lockett as the backups. So the receivers are going to be shallow too, Big B. They might be limited in what they can do.
I mean, they can be.
Yeah.
But I think they're only going to be limited if they choose to limit themselves. If these guys are on the roster and you really want them to try to contribute, then I think you've got to open some stuff up and give them real opportunities to catch the football. Now, if they can't play or you don't think they're ever, well, then that's another conversation for a different day, I would guess, or maybe it is a conversation for now. If these guys can't get out there and contribute, I know this is a harsh thing to say, but why are they there? Especially with roster numbers, scholarship numbers being cut down and rosters being cut down, then what's the point? What's the purpose to all of this? So I don't think that, I know what you're saying, and you are right. We might be limited because maybe these guys aren't good enough or not enough experience, but I don't think that the coaching staff should limit them in that because, hey, we need to see if these guys can play. Because if they can't, there's a transfer portal out there that we got to go get some guys to come in and do it. So I wouldn't limit them in what the offense should do as far as a receiver standpoint, a running back standpoint, or anything. It's just we got to see if these guys can go. And if they can go, great. If they can't, we know what we need to do.
Yep. They've added two players for the portal at receiver. One's a big guy, bigger than Trey Spivey, and another is maybe a comp to Keegan Johnson. So they're trying to replicate those pieces. Defensively, they're missing Jacob Parrish, one of the great corners on this team, who's going to the NFL along with DJ Giddens. Jacob has been an incredible piece to this defense. Was under-recruited, came in, and immediately played as a true freshman, started for 2 full years, put in his great time. K-State's not real deep at corner, but I'm going to say this, and this also comes from a place of not fully understanding how Rutgers pieces things together, but I'm glad they're playing a Big Ten team. I'm glad that it's not Shedeur Sanders on the other sideline. Let's put it that way. That's really going to test your corners. And I feel like I just feel like the secondary may not have as much pressure on it as it did in the Big 12, where you had guys, and even with Tulane, really good quarterbacks that constantly challenge what you're doing. And it showed at times. I hope this is a better matchup for K-State.
Well, I mean, 54% completion is what their quarterback is throwing. He threw for just over 2,400 yards for the season. So we'll see how all that works out. But again, another test of, hey, we're young back there. If they throw it around a little bit, I would actually prefer that they throw it around a little bit, Fitz, and see what we have. Now, it might not end up well for us. It might look bad, but I'm okay with it looking bad if it, again, shows us either we're good or we're not so good and lets us know what we need to do. So I would almost prefer that that's what they do, because I still feel K-State's going to be good against the run. And if Rutgers wants to do that, okay, fine. But throw it around a little bit. Test our guys. I'm fine with that. Again, we could end up on the wrong end of a lot of plays if that's the case, if we're not very good, but at least we know that. And this is the time where you get live bullets to find out how good these guys actually can be. I think that's to our advantage.
I agree. I'll be fascinated to see what the offensive game plan is, and I'm sure Joe Klieman, as his style, will attack that Rutgers offense. How big is this game for K-State? I mean, again, bowl games aren't the same, and it doesn't have the same feel. It certainly doesn't have the same feel. But how big is this contest?
I'm not gonna lie. I don't think it's that big of a deal. We just finished talking. I can't be a hypocrite and just finish talking about how we want to play as many guys as we want, take some chances, take some risks, and then come back and tell you, oh man, we got to win this game. No, it's not. That's not the case. But I do think it's important to put on a good showing. That's what I think is important, not to go out and embarrass ourselves and get beat 42-10 or something like that. Do we want to win? Absolutely. No, you never want to lose as a competitor. Never want to lose anything. At the same time, you're still trying to accomplish something, and it is what I mentioned before. Make sure that you send the seniors out the right way. Make sure you go and compete. Play as many people as possible. Put guys in situations that maybe they haven't been in before and see how they perform. See how they react. Whether it's good or bad, you need to see it. And I think that is more important, the most important thing about this game. But as far as the overall program, I don't think it moves the needle not 1 inch either way in this bowl game. I don't think that's the case.
I'm kind of with you. It's a strange spot. K-State's never really felt this way heading into a bowl, but the times are changing, Big B, for better or worse, and onward we go with college football. We have no idea what it's going to look like in a couple of years. What a weird world we live in right now. That's it for the first portion of this Powercat Pregame Podcast, sponsored by Weddle & Sons Roofing. And after the break, we gave Ryan Wallace the week off. He's been a little bit busy with the transfer portal. That's part of his job, most of his job. And we'll bring in an expert from Rutgers. My colleague from the Rutgers 24/7 sports site awaits on the other side as we continue this edition of the Powercat Pregame Podcast.
It's time to take a break for our sponsors. We'll be back with more from GoPowercat.com.
Weddle & Sons Roofing. Protecting homes, businesses, and providing peace of mind for more than 25 years. Weddle & Sons is your Tesla solar roofing outlet.
Now let's head back to the show for more K-State sports coverage from GoPowercat.com.
Welcome back to the Powercat Pregame Podcast, sponsored by Weddle & Sons Roofing, and it's time to take a look at the Rutgers Scarlet Knights. And normally we bring in Ryan Wallace for our opponent preview, but as you can imagine, the transfer portal's keeping our recruiting editor a little bit busy, so we went to the expert, Bobby Deren from our Rutgers 24/7 site. And Bobby, thank you so much for taking time.
Thanks for having me, Tim. I appreciate it.
You bet. You bet. So give me the summary of Rutgers here in the 2024 season, the overview.
Well, it started off 4-0, went to 4-4, and 7-5. And, it was kind of a tale of three seasons. Injuries struck, and they struck really hard right in the middle of the season. The defense went into a tailspin, had a bye week, kind of regrouped, and went 3-1 to close out the season. Only loss was that Illinois final where they had that miraculous touchdown in the final seconds of the game. So they really turned it around. They really hung in, but it was a year that had high expectations because it was the first season in which Rutgers did not have Ohio State. It didn't have Penn State. It didn't have Michigan. So the schedule kind of softened a bit because the Big Ten East, it was dissipated. So it basically was, okay, you don't have to play those three teams. And Rutgers went 1-29 in the last decade against those three teams. So, you're starting this season, Tim, with, three losses every year, it seems, and this year it wasn't. So while it was a good season, the injuries really hurt. At one point or another, Rutgers was playing with 7 of their 11 defensive starters either out or injured. So that kind of tells you everything you know. It was a defense that finished number 16 in the nation last year, brought back all but a couple players. And this year, the numbers have just dropped. They're lower towards the bottom of the Big Ten in defense. So it was just trying to get through those injuries. But in the process, the offense kind of found new life with Ethan Kaliakmanis starting a quarterback coming over from Minnesota. And, that kind of revivified everything a little bit. And, he came over, was just the right fit for Rutgers. He knew Kirk Soraka from his time at Minnesota, and the offense kind of took on new life.
Well, give me everyone's going through the portal, opt-outs, injuries. So give me the status of this roster heading into the Rate Bowl.
Well, Greg Schiano is keeping it mum. And he's very, he doesn't want to let anything out. He calls it a competitive advantage, right?
Yep.
Now, so we were not even going to know if Kyle Monungai is going until game day, because he said, he's practicing, but he said, I don't know, maybe I might play, maybe I might not play. So everybody's playing pretty coy, but I can imagine a few of the guys will be out, Tim. I don't expect all of them to play. I mean, you have a lot of guys that are in their last year. Playing in this bowl game jeopardizes not only their health, it takes away from the time they can recuperate and get ready for all those NFL draft, combines, all-star games, pro days, everything. So you'll see some guys out, but right now, I'm sorry, I can't tell you which ones because, I'd probably be excommunicated from practice if I did say it.
I love it. I got a story for you. So I think it was 2006, maybe, when Greg Schiano was on his first adventure there at Rutgers. Naturally, what he was doing at Rutgers reminded us of Bill Snyder at Kansas State. And the story you just told really reminds me of Bill Snyder at Kansas State, cut from the same cloth. But we were out there, me and another colleague, covering basketball. The K-State team played at Rutgers that night. So we stopped by practice, and Coach Schiano was great enough to just talk to us for a while. Really impressive guy. It's got to be comforting to have him back, because he's proven he can do it, and by golly, he's doing it again.
And nobody can really, the people that stepped in, for Greg Schiano when he went to coach is the head guy at Tampa Bay in the NFL. Kyle Flood took over and just started dropping the program. Chris Ash took over, and it was like the dark ages. I sat through a 78-0 loss to Michigan, in which, we go to high school games, different college games. I have never seen a team get beat that badly at every position. So he had a lot of ground to make up. The cupboard was bare. So for him to get to this point from starting with virtually nothing, that's an accomplishment in itself, Tim.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. I've always been a big fan of his, and it'll be good to see him again, because I like old school coaches. I think they're the real deal. So give me kind of the offensive breakdown. You got into the quarterback a little bit, but what can K-State expect schematically and skill-wise from this talent on this offensive side of the ball?
Well, Rutgers likes to run the ball. It's run-first offense. Even if Kyle Monungai doesn't play, they're going to try to run the ball. Antoine Raymond is a freshman, stepped in for him, done a real nice job. Jayshon Benjamin in his second year is another guy. They'll kind of share the duties if Kyle doesn't play, but they're going to run the ball. They're going to stick with it. Now, they've had injuries at tight end. They had 4 tight ends lost for the season. So to compensate for that, that just speaks to some of the injury problems they've had. But to compensate for that, they started going 4 wide at times in the middle of the year, and it worked really well. And the passing game started to click. Dymere Miller caught 57 passes, and it's the most since Mohamed Sanu in 2011. So, Ethan Kaliakmanis has thrown for more yards than any Rutgers quarterback since 2014. So the offense, and he hasn't thrown for, it's 2,400 yards. So it's not like he's thrown for 4,000 yards. That the offense has been so, abysmal for the last decade. And they started to pull itself out with Kyle Monungai, but this is the first time there's a complementary offense. The wide receivers are really kind of stepping up. I mentioned Miller. He was a transfer from Monmouth, the leading FCS receiver from last year, and he really had a good year. Ian Strong is a sophomore. KJ Duff is a freshman, both 6'6" guys who really go up and get the ball. So they've really started to emerge as well, and it's helped in the passing game. So I think you'll see a decent amount of passing mixed in there, but they are always a run-first team, and it goes back way to the time when they played Kansas State in that Texas Bowl, with Ray Rice. So it's just that's the Schiano mentality. And this year's team kind of deviated from that because the defense kind of had that, hiccup, that they elongated hiccup, I should say, because it's basically, let the defense sort it out, run the ball, kill the clock, and keep those low-scoring games. And, lately it's been a bit different because they've been throwing the football and putting points on the scoreboard, and fans love it because they've been through the dark ages.
Absolutely. Yeah. Throwing the ball in the Big Ten. It's a revelation.
Yes.
Let's do the defense now. You mentioned all the injuries. How are they health-wise, and what can K-State look at schematically for this team?
They play three safeties, two linebackers in there, and it's not really a defense that's predicated on one or two guys making plays. It's kind of a cohesive unit. They swarm to the ball. They don't have a prolific pass rusher at all. They can disguise some blitzes. They're not going to pressure you with their ends. At one point in the season, they were on like the 5th and 6th defensive ends. So you don't see big sack numbers. Mohamed Toure was lost before the season. Linebacker, second on the team in tackles last year. He was their best pass rusher. He would slide down on third down. So it's been kind of like a hodgepodge of guys in there. So, I think you're going to see some guys probably sit out on defense. So you'll see some young guys in there. They like to swarm towards the football. They do coverage. The coverage skills have been pretty good at the cornerback position, but sometimes they're left out to dry when they don't have that pass rush. But it's been more of a bend, don't break type defense where they've made some stops when they need to, but you're not going to see great numbers. They're going to have to find a way. Keontae Hamilton's been their best defensive tackle. Now, if he doesn't play, they could be susceptible up the middle to the run. And their defensive end position was so bad, they had to move him out to end. He's a 310-pound defensive tackle. So it's kind of just been a makeshift. And to make matters worse, Joe Harasimiak, the defensive coordinator, is gone. And he just, he accepted the position at UMass as the head coach. So, you have Shiano and some other guys working in there to coach the defense. So I don't know what to expect with this defense because you're not sure which guys are going to play. You have new coaches in there. I think for Rutgers' sake, they're going to have to hope that they can score some points because I don't know if that defense is really going to be up to the challenge with so much potentially missing.
Bowl games are such an adventure now with all the
They really are.
And everything that goes on. How much quarterback run game did Rutgers see in the Big Ten?
Ethan Kaliakmanis would run. It wasn't, a game by game where he's going to run a lot. It would be some disguises. He would run when the plays break down, but they don't have much backup, so they don't want to get hurt.
Yeah,
they don't want to get them hurt. Their backup quarterback, Johnny Shepard, played in one game last year, and he has no experience. So they've been pretty careful with him. He will run occasionally. He'll get down, but and he can make a little bit of yardage. He's not he's not going to light you up with his speed, but he'll be sneaky on some plays and find some openings. You can count on for a few runs a game, but I don't think he's not going to pad the stat sheet with rushing yards.
Let's flip it over. How many running quarterbacks has the Rutgers defense faced?
Oh, this year, they're playing in the Big Ten. You know how it goes. And that's been an area where Greg Schiano's defense have historically struggled against running quarterbacks. They did do a good job against Kyron Drones earlier from Virginia Tech, but didn't really see those, that big mix of it, throughout the course of a year. Last few games, you're talking about Maryland, Michigan State, Illinois, not really, trying to do much of anything running the football. So they haven't faced a ton, but it is an area where Rutgers could be susceptible. And that's another area where Kansas State could really prove well with Avery Johnson.
Yeah, it's been interesting. Avery's a run first guy, but the quarterback situation at K-State's similar. So they've been very protective of him, trying to keep him upright, and they've managed for the most part, but they've had to dip into the bench once in a while, but now they're backup Taquan Roberson, who was at UConn last year, hit the portal again, so they don't have their number one backup. So
he's a Jersey guy.
Yeah, he is.
Remember him from recruiting.
He came in. He played a huge series at Colorado when Avery went down. He injured a hip there that troubled him for about half the season. But boy, he let him down the field. So he was a valuable resource, but I hope he finds good luck. Special teams, what's Rutgers got cooking on that?
Jay Patel has been, lights out. He's been reliable, hasn't missed a kick since earlier in the season. Very good field goal kicker. But on punt team, you have one of the Australian style punters again. You do the rugby kick. He tries to run up the sideline pretty much, and wait as long as he can to kick it. It's not the prettiest sight in the world. It's been pretty effective. I mean, nothing, stellar, but it's been decent. And the kickoff, they don't return the kickoffs. It's all fair catches. They'll punt block is a big Greg Schiano thing. So you won't see much on returns of fair catches. pretty much every time. But they will run some punt blocks. And so that's something to look out for. But, the return game is virtually non-existent because they're just content on kickoffs to start at the 25, and they're content on punts to go for the block and just fair catch it. So they've only returned a handful all year, punts and kicks.
That cuts down on the mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
So, a big discussion around here has been the shifting importance of bowl games. And is this really the end of the 24 season or the start of the next season? You know what I mean?
Right.
With the portal and guys leaving and sitting out, it's just put bowl games, particularly at this level, in a really awkward spot. What's this game mean to the Scarlet Knights?
Well, for Rutgers, it's been a long time. This is the first time back-to-back bowl seasons since 2014. They were in the 2021 Gator Bowl, but that's only because Texas A&M pulled out. Rutgers was 5-7, and they had a high APR, so that allowed them to sneak in. So it's really an asterisk next to that bowl game. But bowl games were the norm when Greg Schiano was here the first time, and fans are just eager to get back into that postseason. It's like, and not in the Detroit Bowl, which they were scared to, the quick lane that they were there in 2014. Then the Pinstripe Bowl, Rutgers has been 3 times. It's just a short drive to New York City. So, to go somewhere else other than Detroit the day after Christmas is a win, and they're really excited about because it's not happened in a while. So and you're going to probably see some guys that are going to be the guys for next year, like you said. Is it a preview of 2025? So for Rutgers, it's just nice to get back to the bowl game, and fans are thinking, what if? Because if they would have beat Illinois in that game, the bowl situation would have flipped around immensely. So but it's not Detroit, it's not the Pinstripe Bowl again. So it's a win there. And I don't really know what to expect because you don't know which guys are going to show up.
Amen.
And new defensive coordinator. I think Kansas State is not the best matchup for Rutgers. I think it's going to be a tough matchup. Rutgers is going to have a tough time defensively, slowing that offense down.
This has been a weird season. Let the weirdness continue.
Yes.
As K-State and Rutgers meet in the Ray Bowl. Bobby, thank you so much.
Oh, thanks, Tim.
And that'll do it for the second segment of the Powercat Pregame Podcast. After the break, we will bring in Chris Klieman for a little bit from his press conference, which happened last week. And then we'll have Ryan Gilbert wrap us up with the betting lines and some of the prop bets around the Rate Bowl. We'll be right back on the PPP, brought to you by Weddle & Sons Roofing.
It's time to take a break for our sponsors. We'll be back with more from GoPowercat.com.
Weddle & Sons Roofing. Protecting homes, businesses, and providing peace of mind for more than 25 years. Weddle & Sons is your Tesla solar roofing outlet.
Now let's head back to the show for more K-State sports coverage from GoPowercat.com.
Welcome back to the Powercat Pregame Podcast. We've got 2 segments down, 1 more to go. And in this one, we're going to hear from Chris Klieman. We normally would hear from Avery Johnson also, but we didn't have him available to us until the day before the game, or 2 days before the game. The day before the game was Christmas, which we had off. So we're just going to roll with Chris Klieman. We'll get to Ryan Gilbert with some of those betting lines and maybe some of the prop bets he thinks you should keep an eye on as we continue to preview the Cats and Scarlet Knights in the Rate Bowl. Here's some of the best stuff from Chris Klieman. I've mushed together, that's a technical term, from his press conference before the team headed down to Phoenix. Let's get going with Coach Klieman.
We've had, I think, 9 practices. We've had a lot of developmental work, some Rutgers work. As you guys know, we also are limited in the amount of game planning, limited in the amount of time because of portal kids and kids being on campus every day. We've got kids on campus pretty much every day. So that's the balance that we've got to adapt and adjust to. We hope we get it figured out here in college football in the near future, but that's the balance and that's what we have to do. So proud of our staff being able to come up with plans as well as spending the time with kids that are looking for school. So busy times around here for sure. We'll practice Saturday, Sunday, Monday before we leave though.
The portal's still open, of course, but are you happy about all the players you're able to retain? And
yeah, I think that's the biggest thing is the players you're able to retain and keep here. And credit to those kids, credit to their teammates. I told him after Iowa State that we have a really good bunch of talented players here, and if you stay, I think we can do collectively some special things. And the core of our best players returned. I know that those kids are still getting contacted too. I mean, it is what it is, guys. It's not tampering. Their agents or contacting people, or that's kind of what goes on when people talk about is it tampering or not. It's if you have this number, we get in the portal. I mean, that's where we're at right now in this business, which is unfortunate, but excited that those core guys have stuck together as a team. And we're excited. We're going to play a lot of young kids on the 26th, but we've got a lot of returning veterans that have played a lot of football that are going to play on the 26th. So we're excited. It's going to be a big challenge.
Just confirming, DJ and Jacob, are they not going to play in the bowl
game? Yeah, those
game?
are the two that I think those are the only two that aren't in the portal that are not playing.
So, Chris, this game's a little bit like last year in that last year you got to get a sneak peek of Avery. Yep. This year you get to look ahead with Dylan and Joe. What are you expecting out of those guys at running back?
I'm excited for those guys. It's their chance to get established. We know a lot of the things that Dylan can do, and excited to be able to showcase a lot of those things for him come the 26th. And then, Joe, we've seen some really good glimpses of him in the early part of the season, but with DJ, having the bulk of those carries, it's going to be a great opportunity for Joe to and Joe's a good football player, and he's ready for this. I mean, all the reps he's had, whether it's in game or in practice, have prepared him. So I'm excited to see what we're going to do offensively.
We are almost done with the Powercat Pregame Podcast, previewing the Rate Bowl between Kansas State and Rutgers, and now it's time to take a little peek into the betting lines for this bowl game. There's not a lot out as we record this, so as we like to do, Ryan Gilbert and I are going to wing this. But we do know the spread as of this recording, Ryan Gilbert. Oh, by the way, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I mean, guys, the bowl game, we're recording this on Sunday. That's no secret, Fitz, right? Come on, give us some props. Give us some lines to look at. This is
it's a bowl game.
A bowl game. Yeah. Oh, well.
Get it out there in advance.
Yeah.
I guess when Vegas isn't interested in the bowl games, it says a lot about where bowl games sit right now.
Right.
I mean, I'm sure all of their action is on the playoff.
CFP. Yep.
So, and this is not the college football playoff. It is the Rate Bowl. And Kansas State is favored by 6.5 against a Rutgers team from the Big Ten. That we don't know how will match up with K-State very well. There just isn't many common denominators in schedules or anything like that. There isn't much fire to this game. There just isn't much interest in this game from either party. It's a weird bowl game, Ryan. And I don't expect, I called you Ryan. I don't expect many people to actually bet on it. But what would you say if they wanted to bet on the outcome?
Well, Chris Klieman saying he's spending like 70% of his time on the portal and only like 30 for bowl prep just kind of tells you all you need to know. And I'm sure the same is being said on Rutgers side as well. So it's not a bad thing or a problem. It's just where we are. And so I don't love the spread either way. I mean, Fitz, we got to give our picks here. And so that's why I go K-State minus 6.5. I think K-State, this will be a high scoring game. We'll get into the over under here in just a sec, but K-State, I think, is a better team. And I don't want to say that Rutgers isn't playing for anything, but I think, K-State, we're covering this team, right, Fitz? Yeah. We hear the reasons why they want to win for their seniors, and going into next year, we talked with the players on Friday. Going into next year feels a lot better with a win rather than a loss, and so I think K-State rolls in this one. And I mean, I guess I can just get right into the over under as well. Yep. I think there'll be a lot of points scored, Fitz, as well. I mean, this is just going to be a true college football game. Don't think there's going to be a whole lot of stuff thrown at you defensively. I think Avery Johnson's going to cook and a lot of points are going to be scored, and it'll just be kind of one of those games, a bowl game, right? A college football bowl game where there's just a lot of fun, not much defense, and a lot of points being scored.
Yeah, Big B and I talked about whether this will be, all the same stuff we've seen all season, or if, for example, offensively, they just throw some stuff in that they haven't used. And why not?
It's like your leftovers in your fridge. It's going to get thrown away. Might as well.
Go have fun. Go have fun. And one of the differences about this team is no DJ Giddens, which is impactful, no doubt about it. So we have Dylan Edwards and Joe Jackson splitting time at running back. Neither one of them is the big beast that is Mr. Giddens, but they're both very effective. So what prop do you have dealing with that?
Pretty straightforward, man. Dylan Edwards, this is kind of, he's going to get an increase in carries and touches without a doubt. Without Giddens, this is his time to play with that sense of urgency and kind of prove that he can be an every down back, right? And is he going to ever be? Who knows? Will he just kind of be a gadget guy that operates in the slot and all that stuff for K-State? That remains to be seen. But this is a big opportunity for Edwards to prove that, for this team to kind of find some answers where they can use Dylan Edwards moving forward. So rushing yards, again, we don't have the prop or the line out here for this yet, but I would like the over on that, whatever it may be. I'm sure that it'll be higher than what it's been in the past without Giddens, but man, Dylan Edwards, give me the over on his rushing yards. And I don't know if Joe Jackson will be available anywhere. That's worth looking into, as well as this is a big game for him to prove himself and his worth in this system.
That's one I would look for. If they set a number for Joe Jackson, which I don't expect, but if they do, it might be low. And I think he's going to probably cover that. K-State's going to be missing some receivers also. Pretty thin at that spot. Some familiar faces, including Keegan Johnson, Trey Spivey, are not going to be there. They're in the portal. That might have an impact on how Avery approaches the passing game, and that might impact one of your props.
Yeah, somebody's going to have to step up. It just has to happen. And whoever you want to pick, go for it. I'm not going to say that there's one guy that's way above the others, but Fitz, I know we were texting, and Will Swanson might be his last game at Kansas State. Might as well throw some coin on him to get into the end zone anytime touchdown scorer. But any of the tight ends, really, if you think that, I doubt Sterling Lockett or Ty Bowman, for different reasons, a younger player like Lockett or a veteran guy that they just want to get, gift him with a touchdown. I think that kind of goes with Swanson as well, though. So somebody's going to step up without a doubt. Whoever that might be, you listening, that's up to you. But Fitz, me and you both agree that Swanson can be that guy without a doubt.
Yeah, it just seems like they will reward him for his duty. There might be same of other people, but that's the one we rolled with. Okay, Avery Johnson. He was beaten up as the season progressed. He got a little bit healthier, but we expect him to be pretty healthy for this one. So that could be impactful in how he plays and how they use him too.
Yeah, Fitz. I mean, I get it. He's probably healthy now, but after getting just kind of banged up throughout the ups and downs of the season, it's hard to really imagine and envision Avery running it a whole lot in this game, and especially for a game that, again, I don't want to say doesn't mean anything, but a game that you don't need Avery Johnson to potentially risk any sort of injury for next year. So I like the under on Avery Johnson's rushing. However, that in turn is why I like the over on his passing. I mentioned earlier, a lot of points I think might be scored in this game. Go out, play football, college football, right? Avery Johnson's going to try to maybe spread that love a little bit for different reasons to different guys. And so I don't see Avery Johnson really running it a whole lot. Let Joe Jackson and Dylan Edwards kind of do their thing on the ground. Let Avery Johnson show off what he can do with his arm.
Very interesting. And you said K-State's winning. You think this will be kind of an easy day at the office for K-State, or is there such a thing for this team?
Well, man, I mean, the month of November was they got to change old things up from that, Fitz.
Yeah.
Keep it at that.
And I'm sure them wearing alternates greatly alternated your view of this game, right?
Here we go.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody watching or listening wants to hear my thoughts on uniforms. It's not that I don't love it or hate it. I just don't care.
Gamblers are like, they're wearing alternates, they're going to lose.
Oh, when Chris Klieman, man, when he made that comment, the spread just went 10 points in favor of K-State. Makes that much of a difference.
It does. That's Ryan Gilbert. He's done for the season helping us with sports betting. Maybe we'll have him on the Big 12 Insiders, but we like to keep him contained. We don't like to get him out too much because anyhow, we're headed to, are you looking forward to spending Christmas with me in Phoenix?
No.
Should I take my Santa outfit? I'll have to check a bag if I do.
You have a beard that straps on your chin, your
Oh,
You're
on my face,
pretty-
not a beard for my face. No.
You got to grow something real quick, Fitz.
Oh, I know. Well, I wear a beard, but it's not on my face. That's enough of this segment. That is Ryan Gilbert. I appreciate it very much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan Gilbert. And that will do it for this edition of the Powercat Pregame Podcast, sponsored by Weddle and Sons Roofing, our final edition of this show for the 24 season. As you know, K-State is 8-4. Rutgers is 7-5. This is a very interesting game, although what it really means to the two programs seems a little uncertain as we head into the game, but it's always better to win than lose even in this strange era of postseason bowl games. The game is on the 26th in Phoenix, and I will be there with our Ryan Gilbert covering it for GoPowercat, and I hope you can watch it on ESPN or listen to the K-State Sports Network with Wyatt Thompson and Stan Weber and my friend Matt Walters on the call. It's the Cats and Scarlet Knights on Thursday afternoon in Phoenix, and I will see you at Chase Field because I can't see you at the Bill until, well, I got to go to Ireland before I can do that. We'll talk to you later.
Thank you for watching GoPowercat.com's PowerCat Pregame Podcast, sponsored by Weddle and Sons Roofing. This has been a GoPowercat.com and Spirit Street production.